All right, welcome on board, everybody. So tonight we're going to jump into building policies, procedure, guidelines, and standard. At the end of the session, the goal is to get you comfortable to understand what are the difference between a policy, a procedure, guidelines, and standard. Okay, so leave here with that at the minimum. All right, let's go. Why cybersecurity policy matters. Now, the cost of implementing cyber strategies, cyber cost in general for 2025 is projected to be almost $13.8 trillion. dollars. That's a lot of trillion, global cost. So it means we need to protect all of our assets, digital assets all over the world, right? It's a big priority for every organization, every state, every hospital, NGO, publicly traded, privately traded. Every kind of organization needs a solid cyber strategy now. So it's a big deal. We know right now it's a very big deal globally. And also there are compliance requirements, regulatory requirements. So gone are the days you're just doing it because you choose to do it. Sometimes you're doing it because you have to do it actually. So because of that, it's there's no option really. You just have to do it, or else the fines can be very, very embarrassing at times, and it can take you out of business if you don't have a good backup. All right, so let's talk about the key terms. My goal is in a few 30 seconds, hopefully. I'll make you understand the big differences. Anytime you hear the word policy, the key is it's a high level statement. It's high level. It does not get into the details of what you're doing. It's going to be the gist of what you're supposed to do. When you get to the realm of procedure, now we are talking about the step by step on what you are supposed to do to comply with the policy. Let's take it again. Policy is the high level. Procedure is the step by step. Let me tell you one funny thing, right? Some years back, before all these AI tools became available, I'll tell you this. About six senior managers then, inclusive of myself, some years ago, and a couple of managers, then some analysts. It's a global Fortune 50 company, right? And our role was to build cyber policy for them in this quarter. And believe it or not, it took us about 2 months. And even the 2 months, I don't even recollect we finished it, but let's say we got it to 90% in 2 months. We, we didn't meet every day, but we had meetings maybe twice a week. So you can imagine what you're going to do tonight, my Lord. What it took maybe eight of us, 8 to 10 of us that will meet every week twice for 2 months to do, I can tell you today with better quality, you'll probably do it now in 2 hours. Yeah, you will do it better than us in 2 hours. I remember then when we were working on the policy, there's always that little bridge when you're writing a policy document that sometimes you overlap into procedure. You're trying to give high level statement, but sometimes I bet you if you do it manually yourself, you find it out. Sometimes you start overlapping into already getting into procedure realm because now you're talking about what to do in terms of the steps. So, it's easy to say, okay, all right, set boundary for system and network usage. Okay. All right. Now, if you start finding yourself saying it should include somebody checking, monitoring, or checking logs now, or logging into the system. Now you're getting out of the realm of just a high level statement. You've started getting to procedural conversation at that point. Guidelines are just recommended best practices. They're not mandatory. You don't have to do it, right? Then standards, the specification are mandatory, mostly from a regulatory requirement or from professional board on standards that you're expected to use, especially for technical stuff. Example will be encryption standard because this is something globally used. So the standard can be consistent across the board. So let's do a quick quiz. Let's see. Tell me what I am. I'm a framework that is needed to be implemented for your organization. What am I? Hmm. I trapped you guys. I'm a framework. Aha. I got your framework cannot be policy, right? No way. It's a framework, right? If I use this framework or ISO 27002, it's a guideline. It's not by force. I don't have to use it. Remember, right? Let's take it again. Okay, all right. I've not done a good job of breaking that down. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back. We got to talk. Every one of our frameworks out there, ISO, NIST, any one of them, right? The truth is that they are guidelines. They are recommended practices, right? You don't have to use it. It's not like you have to use that framework. I can use any other one, right? As a matter of fact, I told you for those of us in consulting space, we always develop proprietary guideline or framework. So you can use anything. The reason we use those leading framework is it makes sense because it gives you credibility. People will not overly probe you because you've used the best anyway. So it is a guideline. It's optional. You don't have to use it. It's optional. It's a good thing to do, but it's optional. Okay, let's go. I'm a high level statement to provide strategy for my organization. What am I? Okay. I get into the details of step by step on what to do. What would you consider me to be? Okay. Okay. I'm a mandatory specification. What will I be? Standard. All right, cool, 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 cool. All right, honest, that's the main difference between those four. In general, those are the main differences. But let's get into the details of it. Now, in terms of information security policy, one of the things you'll notice, any organization you work with would always have you to come up with some, they would have their set of policies, but in your mind, you want those policies to address confidentiality, integrity, availability. Can we all type CIA real quick? You want the policy to address CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability at the minimum. Okay, awesome. All right, cool. Let's take the first quiz. What is the CIA triad? Huh, you better get that one. If you miss it, I'm sure you're trying to piss me off. No way. You better not miss it. We are all looking at the street in front of us. If you miss it, I'm going to look for you. I will hunt you. Aha, those two people, I'm coming for you. I see you. I'm coming for two of you. All right, confidentiality, integrity, availability. All right, step one, and we're going to get into this over the weekend. Risk assessment. In general, we need to identify critical assets, which we've talked about asset management. We need to analyze the threats and vulnerabilities for those assets. We need to assess, then we have to have a structured approach in which we intend to make sure we can continuously monitor those assets. And that's where this best practices comes in, right? At the end of the day. So there will be your guidelines in general. All right, quick one. What is the first step in risk assessment? If I'm doing a risk assessment, what is the first step? Excellent. Identify critical assets. Always remember again, what am I assessing the risk on if I don't even know what asset is at risk, right? So it's just standard for us.